What I'm about to tell you is the kind of information that most doctors don't sit down and explain to you during a 15-minute appointment, and it might be the most important thing you hear all year. Here's the stat that stopped researchers cold. Scientists can now predict with startling accuracy whether you will die within the next 5 years, not by running expensive blood panels or scanning your organs, but simply by measuring how fast you walk across a room. A study published in JAMA tracking thousands of adults found that walking speed alone was a more reliable predictor of mortality than many traditional medical tests. Let that sink in for a second. The way you shuffle from your kitchen to your front door might already be whispering something your doctor hasn't told you yet. Your body is not silent. It has never been silent. It is constantly broadcasting signals, distress calls, early warnings, quiet alarms that most of us have been trained to ignore or explain away. We call them quirks. We call them aging. We call them just stress, but your body doesn't deal in coincidence. Every strange sensation, every subtle shift in the way you move, sleep, smell, or feel is part of a language that researchers are only now beginning to fully decode. And the translation is deeply unsettling. Let's start with your grip. Right now, if you have something nearby, pick it up and squeeze it. That simple act is one of the most powerful windows into your future survival. A landmark study following nearly 140,000 people across 17 countries found that grip strength decline was a stronger predictor of cardiovascular death than blood pressure. Not slightly stronger, significantly stronger. Every 11-pound decrease in grip strength was associated with a 17% higher risk of dying from heart disease. Your hands are not just tools. They are biological clocks, and they are ticking. Scientists believe this works because grip strength reflects the overall integrity of your musculoskeletal system, your cardiovascular health, and even your neurological function all at once. When the grip weakens, something deeper is unraveling. Now think about the last time you sat on the floor and got back up. No holding onto a chair, no using your knee, just pure movement from the ground to standing. This is called the sitting-rising test, and a Brazilian physician named Claudio Gil Araujo designed it after noticing that his patients who struggled with basic floor movements were dying younger. His research found that people who scored the lowest on this simple test, who needed the most support to get up, were 5 to 6 times more likely to die within 6 years compared to those who rose effortlessly. The mechanics of rising from the floor demand flexibility, balance, muscle coordination, and motor control. When those systems are deteriorating, the body announces it not with a loud alarm, but with a quiet struggle that most of us chalk up to getting older. But it goes deeper than movement. Your body speaks through your sleep in ways that are genuinely haunting. If you regularly stop breathing during the night, a condition millions of people have without knowing it, your body is essentially rehearsing for a final shutdown with every single sleep cycle. Untreated sleep apnea dramatically increases the risk of stroke, heart failure, and sudden cardiac death. But here's the darker detail that rarely gets mentioned. The repeated drops in blood oxygen that happen during apnea episodes don't just stress your heart. They slowly damage the architecture of your brain. Research has linked untreated sleep apnea to accelerated cognitive decline and an increased risk of developing Alzheimer's disease years earlier than you otherwise would. Every night you stop breathing, your brain loses a little more time. Your skin is another chapter in this dark language. The appearance of deep diagonal creases running across your earlobes, something called Frank's sign, has been associated with an increased risk of coronary artery disease since the 1970s. Doctors debate the mechanism, but the correlation is consistent enough that it appears in medical literature repeatedly. Your earlobe, of all places, might be reflecting plaque buildup in your arteries. The body cross-references itself in ways we barely understand. Similarly, yellowish fatty deposits forming around your eyelids, called xanthelasma, are linked to high cholesterol and significantly elevated cardiovascular risk. These aren't cosmetic nuisances. They are messages written in the language of lipids and inflammation, and they've been there waiting to be read. Then there is something researchers call inflammaging. It sounds almost poetic, but it describes something relentless and corrosive. As we age, our immune system doesn't simply wind down. In many people, it gets stuck in a low-grade state of chronic inflammation, quietly burning like an ember that never goes out. This smoldering inflammation accelerates nearly every age-related disease we know of: heart disease, cancer, diabetes, neurodegeneration. And here is where it gets personal. The foods you eat, the quality of your sleep, your stress levels, even the bacteria living in your gut are all stoking or suppressing that fire. People who carry the highest inflammatory burden in their blood at middle age are dying measurably earlier. You can have this measured. Markers like CRP, interleukin-6, and others tell a biological story about your internal fire. Most people have never had them checked. Most people don't know to ask. Your eyes are watching you back. The retina, the layer of tissue at the back of your eyeball, is the only place in the human body where blood vessels can be directly observed without cutting into anything. And what those tiny vessels look like tells a story that extends far beyond your vision. Using artificial intelligence trained on retinal images, researchers have now demonstrated the ability to predict a person's biological age, cardiovascular risk, and even early neurological changes simply by analyzing a photograph of the back of your eye during a routine eye exam. The blood vessels in your retina mirror the health of blood vessels throughout your entire body. If they look aged, damaged, or irregular, so does the rest of you. The window to the soul might actually be the window to your arteries. There's also the question of smell. Not how things smell to you, but whether they smell at all. A loss of smell, particularly the inability to identify common odors, has emerged as one of the eeriest predictors of cognitive decline and premature death. A study published in PLOS One followed thousands of adults aged 57 to 85 and found that those who failed a simple smell identification test were 4 times more likely to die within 5 years than those who passed it. The researchers were surprised by how strong the association was. They believe smell loss reflects damage to brain regions involved in memory, emotion, and autonomic function, areas that degenerate early in Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease. Your nose might know something your mind doesn't yet. And then there's your face. Not in a superficial sense, but in a deeply biological one. Researchers using facial analysis algorithms have found that perceived facial age, how old you look compared to how old you are, correlates with real biological aging markers and long-term health outcomes. Studies on identical twins have shown that the twin who appears older consistently has shorter telomeres, the protective caps on your chromosomes that shorten with age and stress. Telomere length is one of the most reliable molecular markers of biological age and mortality risk. In other words, if people consistently tell you that you look tired, worn out, or older than your years, they may be picking up on something real. Your face is translating the language your cells are speaking. The most disturbing part of all of this is not that the body sends these signals. It's that we've built a culture of looking away. We normalize fatigue. We celebrate pushing through pain. We treat preventive medicine as optional, something for the anxious or the hypochondriac. But the research is not ambiguous. The body begins broadcasting its distress years, sometimes decades before the crisis arrives. The question is never whether the signals are there. The question is whether anyone is listening. This is not meant to make you afraid. Fear is not useful. What is useful is attention. What is useful is understanding that your body is not betraying you. It is communicating with you, constantly, urgently, in a language that has always existed, but that you now have the vocabulary to begin reading. You are not helpless. The same science that reveals these dark predictions also shows us that many of these trajectories can be altered. Grip strength can be built. Inflammation can be measured and managed. Sleep apnea can be treated. The biological clock can be slowed, if not stopped, but only if you're paying attention. This is what MindAtlas is here for. To translate the science that matters. To bring you information that is too important to stay buried in academic journals. If this video made you think differently about your body, if it made you want to pay closer attention to the signals you've been dismissing, then subscribe. Hit the bell. Because the next thing we explore might be the piece of information that changes everything for you. Your body has been trying to tell you something for years. It's time to start listening.